Hello, this is Mike at Game for Scratch, and welcome to Week 6 in This Week in Game Dev, a weekly recap of what happened in the world of game development. Now, as you may notice by the title screen up in front of you, Week 6 includes December 25th and 26th, so don't expect a heck of a lot of news this week because this was the week of Christmas. Which, by the way, if you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. If you don't, well, you're still impacted because most of the Western world shuts down and doesn't work. So they don't release a heck of a lot, and it kind of shows this week. Now, actually, somewhat surprising, there's more news released this week than I was expecting. So there's definitely reasons to stick around. But let's jump right in. Let's look at what happened this week in the world of game development. Now, very first off thing happened was Graphite released Granite 3 plugin for Unreal 4.10. Now, Graphite make a plugin that does gigapixel texturing. So basically, you can stream in ultra high resolution textures to your game. Here is an example of it running. Sorry about the sound. I have very little control over it. I can turn it down, I suppose. Nope. So here you see like the ultra high resolution textures in the background. As you're moving around this massive open virtual world. And that's the entire idea behind the Granite SDK. So this is what Graphite make. They just released their newest version, and it works as a plugin for Unreal 4.10. They also have plugins for example, Unity Game Engine. But that was this week. FNA was released. Now, FNA has been around for a while, and it started off life as a port of Monogame. It started as Monogame-SDL, I believe, and over time, it's been used to port 40 plus games from Microsoft XNA to Mac Linux. Well, I guess so that's it. So it's a desktop-only porting library, and it's also more pure. Where Monogame kind of re-implemented things or changed things up. This is literally a desktop port, so it's purer too. In some ways, it's supposedly faster and less bug-ridden than Monogame. Now, on the other hand, it does not have mobile support, so a bit of a catch over which way you want to go with that one, but it definitely gives you another option if you have XNA code existing. Now, next up we have Gitaros. Gitaros was released for Raspberry Pi. Now, Raspberry Pi is it's an embedded single chip computer system. So basically you can buy a Raspberry Pi and have a full system, plug in a keyboard, a mouse, and display, and you're off and going. Now the big thing with Raspberry Pi is they're cheap. Now Raspberry Pi themselves, you can get in for as low as 20 bucks type thing. And the idea is mostly behind teaching people how to use computers, etc. And that's where Gitaros comes in. It's basically so you've got something you could run on your Raspberry Pi. Now at the same time, Raspberry Pi is not a beefy machine by any definition of the word. So the Gitaros port is not going to be blazing fast by any means. It's more of a curiosity or a learning tool than anything else. But if you're a Raspberry Pi enthusiast, definitely some interest there. Now, the biggest one of this week is probably the release of Love 0.10. Now, don't let the version numbers mean anything to you. Love's been around for years. They've just got the most conservative versioning system ever. They're a very mature product. But this week added some huge things. And the biggest, if you look on that list, are number 1 and number 2, iOS and Android. And this is probably the biggest thing that's been holding back Love. Now, at the same time, on a kind of a personal level, I've been looking at using Love for a beginner's game dev tutorial, basically to teach you programming via game development. So if you come to game from scratch with zero experience, this will start you off. And Love is what I chose to do. Now, I knew Love 0.10 was on the horizon, so I've been kind of waiting before jumping and creating a bunch of code, etc. And so now that it's released, I'll be moving forward with that series. Now, the big thing again, iOS and Android support are probably what the majority of people have been waiting for, so it's cool that that is finally here. Now, next up we have Unreal Engine 4.11 Beta 1 was released today. Now, they've been doing this for, I guess it's not a beta, it's a preview, but they've been doing this since the very beginning when they started opening the code up. And they normally do 3 or 4 previews between releases. And so this is the very first one. There's not a ton in there, new shaders, etc. Bug fixes, updates, new platforms, things like Metal OS, Apple TV support, Visual Studio 2015 support for Xbox One, etc. So they're kind of just incremental improvements, and this is very much walk on the wild side code. So this is not stability production level code that we're talking about here. So be aware of that. In the tops of preview releases, Leadwerks just released, let's see, it's engine. Yeah, Leadwerks Game Engine version 4 preview, and it's up on Steam right now, and they're also coincidentally running a Steam release. And they are, let's see, what were the big things? There wasn't actually a ton in this. Basically, a lot of vegetation type functionality was added to it. So the big thing actually going on right now is that they're selling it for, I believe, 80 or 85% off on Steam right now. Here, let me just check that quickly. Yeah, 80% off. So right now it is selling for $22 Canadian, so probably about $4 US for the way our money's going. So that's definitely, if you're looking at trying out Leadwerks, right now it's probably as cheap as it gets. I believe that's, I don't know how much longer the holiday sale is going on in Steam, not much longer. So if you're interested, jump in. Unity released patch 5.3.1 P1. They've been releasing these patches pretty much on a somewhat weekly basis. It's nice to see. It's straight out mostly just some small improvements, but it's mostly just fixes. Next up, we've got the Shiva Engine. The Shiva Engine kind of disappeared for the longest time, and I believe it was they were porting to Qt5, and I think they ran into some trouble doing it. So it took some time to get them here, but they have now just done a new release, another beta. So we're at beta 4 of version 2. So they're moving towards version 2, and this is the 4th beta release. It's getting closer and closer. Now, they are also slow in their releases. I think there were 2 releases this year, possibly only even 1. So that might have just been the 2nd release from Shiva. I believe you can download and try it out for free, so if it looks like an interesting engine to you, definitely check that out. Finally, the last thing that we've got here is Ultraviolet C# engine was released via Reddit GameDev, and it's cross-platform XNA-like game engine. It's not meant to be an XNA port by any definition of the word, but it is again C# based. Probably their biggest feature is that they have their own. Well, that it's cross-platform, I guess, is a big up on XNA, but they also have their own UI language. So it's sort of like WPF, or Windows Presentation Framework, I believe is what WPF stands for. But basically, that's Microsoft's UI markup system for desktop. Well, they've implemented a game-ish version, a markup language that you can use to create UIs. They called it UVML, so Ultraviolet Markup Language. So it allows you to do, code level markup, create your UI separate to your game application. But there's a bunch of other functionality here. I checked out the code. It's clean to understand, a little over-engineered at times, or overly complex at times, I guess. But for the most part, it's clean, easy to read code. So even if you're just looking at checking out another engine source code implementation, check out Ultraviolet. It's available, I believe it's MIT license. Yes, it is. MIT license is on GitHub. There's links in there. And speaking of links, everything we just talked about, I will link it in the comments down below. So that was about it. Again, kind of a light week. It was Christmas. So once again, Merry Christmas, and hope people are enjoying the end of your holidays. Expect next week to be a little light too, thanks to the fact that, well, it's post-Christmas, and we've got New Year's Eve and New Year's Day sticking in there too. So it's normally a little light this time of year, and it starts to pick up in a month. But that was it for this week in Game Dev. Some interesting stuff, especially the release of Love 0.10. If you've never checked it out, do so. Lua is a great little language, and Love is a powerful, easy to learn library. So that was it. See y'all later.